Well, hi everybody. This is COMM1160, the video for week number 12. Welcome back. I wanted to first start talking about course completion because believe it or not, we are barreling down to the end of term. We're nearly done. So I wanted to give you a bit of an overview about what to expect over the coming days and what we're going to be doing. This week, we're going to be talking about preparing your final draft. And I know that you're balancing other courses and all sorts of other obligations. So I decided to put in what I'm calling a dual due date for the final draft so that you can pick what works for you. The first due date for the final draft is December 10th at midnight. If you submit your final draft before the 10th at midnight, you'll get your essay back before the end of the course, and you're going to receive full feedback. So you'll receive written feedback. If you're not able to make that deadline, you can submit by December 17th at midnight. But because I'm under a deadline, you're only going to receive a number grade. So you won't actually get that full written feedback. It makes no difference to the number grade at all. So if it's an 80% on December 10th, it's going to be an 80% on December 17th. There's no difference. I want you to pick what works for you. Okay, so think about, the obligations and the amount of work that you have to do over the next couple of weeks and decide what is best, okay, for you and your workload. Again, it makes absolutely no difference, and it makes no difference to me either. So please pick what works for you and what will make the next couple of weeks, which are, I admit they're going to be tough, right? The last few weeks of term always are. Pick what's going to make things easiest on you and most convenient for you. After the final draft, we are going to be having a final assessment, and that's going to be held the week of December 13th. Next week, I'm going to review the content of the final assessment. So these next couple weeks are all about preparing your final draft and starting to get ready for your final assessment that will be held the final week. Okay, so let's start talking about final drafts. It's hard to believe we're at this stage. You're now pulling together all of your work and you're preparing the final draft of the essay that you've been working on since before we had the midterm break. I'm going to ask that you not begin your final draft until you receive a grade on your rough draft. Okay, and that's important because the number that you receive on your first draft will give you an indication about how much revision you need to put into that draft to make a fully effective essay. Final drafts should be as stress-free as possible. Remember that this is your showcase. So this is you showing off all of the work that you've done. From the very first step when we first started finding the research, through the outlining and the Cornell notes and everything that we did, this is your absolute showcase. You want to make sure that given all of the time and effort that you put into your research project, that the final draft represents your best work. Okay, so while I'm saying no stress on one hand, I am saying that you want to produce something that is the absolute best that you can. You're going to need to take some time to revise and edit your paper carefully. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the various things that you need to think about and consider as you're revising for your final draft. I did want to talk about the rough draft grades because those are a really good way of being able to determine how much change you need to put into your draft for a fully effective essay. I did want to say, though, no matter your grade on the rough draft, you will need to edit. So even if you received 100% on your rough draft, you are going to have to go through and do some editing. I am very, very gentle with the rough drafts, so I don't look at stuff like spelling or grammar or any of that in terms of the points that I give you. I was really just looking for structure and your basics. I grade it knowing that it's a planning document, knowing that it's rough work. I'm much harder, okay, on the final drafts. Excuse me. So Even, as I said, if you scored a perfect on your rough draft, you will still need to go through the editing stage. But the number that you receive on your rough draft will give you some indication, okay, as to how much change and how much work you're going to need to put into that draft to get to the fully effective essay. If you score between a 0 and a 5, that indicates that there's significant challenges in the rough draft, and you're probably going to need to make a lot of changes to that draft for a fully effective essay. If you score between 6 and 8, that's average work, okay? So you're going to need to make some changes for a fully effective essay. If you score between 8.5 and 10, you produce some excellent work with your rough draft. You're still going to need to make some changes, but you're definitely on your way to a fully effective essay. So take a look again at the score that you received for your rough draft, and that'll give you a bit of an idea of just how much change you want to put into place. The first thing that you want to do when you are preparing a final draft is look at the organization. Okay, look at the way that you've organized your rough draft. And this is where you're really sort of looking at how you're presenting the information and the order in which you're presenting the information. The main thing you want to check for at the essay level, okay, so at the big level, you want to make sure your introduction goes clearly from the opening to the thesis. You want to make sure that each body paragraph has a clear main idea that relates to the thesis. And you want to make sure that your conclusion summarizes your main ideas and revisits your thesis in different words. You then want to take a look at it by paragraph. Okay, so after you consider it as a whole, look at each paragraph. Make sure when you're looking at the body that the topic sentence clearly states the main idea of the paragraph, and then make sure that all of the details that you've included in the paragraph relates to that main idea. You then want to consider what they call cohesion, okay? And this is the way that the paper sort of fits together. You want to make sure that the opening of the paper clearly connects to the broader topic in the thesis. You also want to make sure that you have support from research for each main point in the body of your paper, okay? Then you want to look at how you're using the information. So if you're using direct quotations, make sure, okay, that you have included introductory material in the sentence before you go into the quotation. Remember that quotations should never stand alone in a paragraph, so they should never be their own full sentence. You want to make sure that any of the paraphrased or quoted material that you've used helps you to develop your points. And you want to see if you need to add or revise the paper to help the reader understand how certain information from a source is relevant. Okay? So that's cohesion. Excuse me. You then want to take a look at style. And style is about all the sort of things that we include when we talk about writing. Okay, so you want to make sure that you avoid excessive wordiness, and you want to make sure that your sentences are varied in length and structure. You want to make sure that you avoid using first-person pronouns like I and we, and you want to use the active voice wherever possible. Okay, you want to make sure, again, that you're using clear, straightforward language wherever you can, and that you've avoided unnecessary jargon. You then want to take a look at grammar, mechanics, punctuation, usage, and spelling. So watch for some of those little nasty grammatical errors, like errors in subject-verb agreement and sentence fragments. Watch for misplaced commas, okay, or incorrectly formatted source titles. Double check spelling, okay, and especially double check spelling of author names, because you want to make sure that those are clear. And knowing yourself, check your paper for any specific editing errors that you know that you tend to make frequently. So think back to our revising assignment. Was there part of the revising assignment that gave you more challenge than another? I know for me, it's commas. Okay, so whenever I'm reviewing my work, I always make sure that I do a special proofread just for commas. For you, it may be commas as well. It may be the apostrophe. It may be stuff like having complete sentences. We all know ourselves really well, so you probably know, okay, what to watch for and take a look for that. You then want to go through and do an APA review, okay? And very, very critically important, you want to make sure that within the body of your paper, any fact or idea that's taken from a source is credited to the correct source. Remember again, that's whether you're paraphrasing or whether you're direct quoting. In some cases on people's rough drafts, I said, take a look at the APA in-text formatting. Okay, that means there was something a little off there. Please be very careful with that. Okay, make sure that every source that you've cited in the body of your paper has a corresponding entry on the references part of your paper. Make sure, okay, that you have a title page, and make sure that the margins of your paper are set to 1 inch and that your text is double spaced and set in a standard 12-point font. Please do not worry about this. Includes a running head. You don't need to have a running head for this paper. Okay, so do a thorough APA review. You want to have your APA absolutely on point in a final draft. In terms of format and putting it all together, your final draft needs to contain an APA title page, the body of your essay, so including the introduction, your body paragraphs, and your conclusion, and then your APA references page. Put all of that in one document, and you probably want to save your document as a PDF so that Blackboard does not make any formatting changes for you when you come together to uploading it. So really, all you're doing when it comes to the final draft is you're pulling it all together, you're spiffing it up, you're making it look pretty, and you're catching any sort of issues that you may have missed when you were working on the rough draft. It really is important to go through the editing stage because, again, remember that when I graded your rough draft, I was looking at it as rough work. So I am going to be looking at your final draft as your showpiece, your brag piece, okay, for the entire course that shows everything that you've learned in terms of APA, in terms of using research, and in terms of writing. So our plan for the next couple of weeks is to work through that final draft. Remember again that we have the 2 due dates for the final draft. Also, I am still available on Course Chat. So if you have any questions or concerns as you're working through your final draft, please stop by. We can open up documents right on the screen and take a look together if you have any questions or concerns as you're working. Also, I wanted to add, as I mentioned to you at the beginning of this video, that I know these next couple of weeks are going to be very, very stressful. In addition to completing your work for COMM1160, I also want to make sure that you take a bit of time for yourself and you think about self-care over these next couple of weeks. Even if it's something basic like taking 15 minutes out to go and get a cup of coffee, okay, when you're feeling particularly tired. You want to make sure that you pace yourself through these next couple of weeks because it does tend to get a little wild towards the end. Know, as always, that I'm rooting for you and that I wish you all the very best of luck as you start preparing for your exams and your final projects and your other courses. Again, if you need anything, remember that I'm here for the Course Chat, and I'm very glad to see you and help you with any issues that may emerge. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.